Good afternoon, Miss Maglish. How are you?
Good afternoon to you, Miss Purcell. I'm very well, thank you. What
Okay.
about you?
I am good, thanks. Now, you are here today because I want your perspective on the professionalism and what it means in early childhood education. Now, oftentimes you would hear persons describing professionalism as simply being something that persons, the way the persons dress, wearing the jacket and tie and heels and so on, right? So I will be giving you an opportunity to explain, thoroughly explain what professionalism entails. Now, you may be asking yourself why you're here today and why did I choose you? Now, simple, you and I know both that you have been an early childhood teacher for a number of years. Added to that, you have just completed your bachelor's education, well, bachelor's degree in early childhood education. So I think you are more than equipped to answer those questions here for us, right?
Okay.
So to begin, just tell us a little about yourself.
Well, my name is Michelle Serrano Makish. I've been a teacher for the past 22 years, a mother of two, and a person who loves children.
Very nice. Happy to hear that. Now let us get right into it. Now, what can you tell me about early childhood education?
Well, early childhood education entails the educating of children from age 0 to age 8. Early childhood is basically the foundation of education of children.
Okay, good. Very nice. Now, I have said to you previously in the introduction, persons have this conception about professionalism, right? What does professionalism means to you?
Well, to me, professionalism is the code of ethics or the code of conduct that would entail taking the behavior of professionals in a work environment and outside of the working environment.
Okay, all right. What would you say are some of the characteristics a professional should possess?
A professional must be honest, or should be honest.
True.
A professional should be knowledgeable in their field. A professional should be reflective. And a professional basically should have good work ethics.
I agree. I agree. Um, why do you think there is a need for practitioners to practice or display a high level of professionalism in the early childhood education?
Like I said before, early childhood education takes in the foundation stage of educating children. And as we know, behaviorist theories say that children learn best from what they see. They basically mimic the adults in the environment.
True.
Now, as an early childhood educator or practitioner, if you practice a low level of professionalism, then the children, this is what they will mimic.
Exactly.
You know, there's this cliche, monkey see, monkey do. That is very evident in the early childhood environment.
So it is very important for us to always operate as professionals. I agree. I agree. Now, give me an example of a time you had with someone who was difficult to get along with. Now, I see that you're laughing, so I guess you must have some example or something that you want to share. How did you handle that with that person?
Well, professionals must be lifelong learners. So to be a professional, you have to be ever learning and basically ever evolving. Now, I have had numerous encounters with persons who are difficult to deal with in my professional setting. What I did in the past is not, I wouldn't say that it's ideal now. I would avoid them. Now, like I said, I don't think that's ideal now. But in my working environment, for instance, my administrator was very difficult to deal with. And there were times in the morning I would be coming into work and I would see him, and because I didn't want to greet him or so, I would try to avoid him. Like I said, it's not ideal, but that's how I handled it then. Now, if you would like to know how I would handle it now,
Please tell me.
I would leave my personal feelings aside and I would deal with the person. So I would try not to let the maybe what happened, the circumstances dictate how I deal with him or her. So I would extend pleasantries to the person. If I have to say something to them on a professional level, I would do that.
And I would tend to agree with you because I am of the view that you may not like the person that is in the office as the administrator, but you respect the office, the person who holds. And that is, I am always have ever thinking of that. And I think that many persons should take a page from that and use it as a guide. If we were to practice or operate as professionals.
But I also think as a professional, you should not cast a blind eye or a deaf ear to oppressive situations in the workplace.
Yes.
So these are things you would speak out on, maybe in a very professional way, but you deal with the issue and not the person. So right. You don't attack the person, but you deal with the issue in a very respectful way.
And that is it. It's not sometimes it's not what you do, but how you deal with it.
Exactly.
Right. So what can lack of professionalism in education, how can that impact students' learning and performance?
Well, if a teacher, for instance, as a professional, time is of essence. Being punctual and being regular in your working environment is very important. Now, in the education sector, for instance, in the classroom, if a teacher is exhibiting, this is their downside, their professional downside, where they're irregular or unpunctual or so, then that will affect the children's performance. Because then this scaffolding and having your teacher there as your facilitator and your guide to, scaffolding your learning process, the person is not ever present. So it can affect the children's learning.
Okay, right. Well, that can bring me to the next question. What are two key issues that hinders early childhood practitioners from developing professionalism?
Well, I think that sometimes training is an issue, and maybe opportunities for learning, maybe higher learning, it's not readily available. And in some cases, when it is available, funding is a problem. So that's one area I think that hinders early childhood practitioners from developing their level of professionalism. Training and maybe lack of opportunities, and when the opportunity presents itself, the money is not there.
Very true, very true. And being professional in whatever walks of life you're at, I think that you see the continuous training, it helps. You always updated on new things, you improve your craft, you improve your skills and way of doing things, and so having continuous personal development sessions, I think is very important in that aspect. And it goes, and some of these things can only happen, as you say, if you have the good right funding, because oftentimes that would be a hindrance as well. So that is correct. What are some steps the Ministry of Education can take to improve teachers' level of professionalism in schools?
Well, I think a lot of professional development sessions should be held. Also, they should encourage teachers. Sometimes the ministries of education in the different countries, they act as a monitoring agency for teachers instead of maybe as you work along with teachers to guide them and to encourage them in the process. So I think maybe the ministry should have a lot of professional development session or seek funding to assist teachers who want to pursue higher learning or look for scholarships for teachers.
And I think that it's important. I think the Ministry of Education should place emphasis on that, because professionalism is indeed a very important factor in our workplace. So I think that they should do as much as they can in that aspect. Finally, what are some of the steps the teacher can take to develop his or her level of professionalism?
Well, I'm big on being a reflective learner or being a reflective person. So I believe that it is very important for teachers to reflect. You reflect on your craft, you reflect on your dues during the school day. Now, for instance, I reflect, I'm an early morning person. In the morning, I would review my previous day. You look at your mistakes and you look at how to correct it. I also believe that teachers should seek to edify themselves, read. Can't be a teacher and you don't read. You have to read, Even if there isn't scholarship opportunities for higher learning for teachers, the internet is there and you have to read.
That is true. That is very true. So, Ms. McLeish, is there anything that I missed that you want to add briefly before we end the interview?
Well, I wouldn't say there's anything that you really missed, but like I said, I just want to reiterate that teachers should be reflective in order to improve their professionalism.
Right. So now that you have given the audience a lot of food for thought, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time out to come in and sit with me and discuss professionalism. And I, for myself personally, I learned a lot. So I want to thank you so very much and continue to be a professional in your craft. Mm-hmm. Good afternoon, Mr. Richards.
Good afternoon, Ms. Purcell.
And how are you?
I am good by God's grace.
Okay, that's good to hear. Right. I have invited you here today to have a little discussion on professionalism and what it entails in early childhood education. Now, persons have spoken in a number of forums and they would have expressed that professionalism means to them just you come in, you're dressing properly, you're properly groomed, and so. So I am going to give you an opportunity to explain to us and share your thoughts as to what professionalism is. Now, I know that you are a parent of a number of children and you have played an instrumental role in your children's school life. Now, as a parent, I want you to give me your perspective on that. And also, I know that you have been an advocate for professionalism in the workplace and in all aspects of life. So I am going to give you an opportunity to share on that as well. All right. So let us start off with, what can you tell me? Just tell us a little about yourself.
First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity for speaking with you on professionalism. It's a passion. Well, my name is Donovan Richards, and I have a family, wife and children. I have 5 children, 2 boys and 3 beautiful girls.
Okay, very nice. Right. What can you tell us? What is exactly early childhood education?
Early childhood education is really impacting the skills, attitude, knowledge, and so on at a very tender age, right? And you need to impact those skills and attitudes, knowledge at that particular age, because that is the age that the children are developing, and that is the age that things would last a very long with them. So early childhood education really takes in, the impacting of the knowledge and skills, attitudes at a very young age, from birth really to 7, 8 years.
So is it correct to say that those are the foundation stage? That is the foundation stage.
Foundation, and you have to build a proper foundation so that you could build later on.
Of course, correct. All right. Secondly, what does professionalism means to you?
Well, it means a lot of things to different people, but to me, it really means a particular behavior or attitude that is required from a team of persons that would work towards a common goal, a vision, and so on. All right. So persons on that team would have to display certain mannerism, so you can actually get somewhere.
Correct. I have to agree. One of the questions that I'm tempted to ask, what are some of the characteristics of a professional? If you have to give me a number of them.
Well, a professional has to display certain behaviors. So, first of all, a professional has to know the vision of the organization, the goals of the organization, the mission, how to get there. And a professional would learn that properly and align himself or herself to that, right? So as to work together with a number of persons to lift that organization to bring it to a higher level. If you want me to give examples, you mentioned earlier on dress code, the way you present your work, very, very important. The time you attend to your work, and many other things. Yeah.
Okay. So, right. This leads me to the next question. Why you think there's a need for professionalism in early childhood education?
You see, when you're a professional, especially, and I am happy you were talking about early childhood education because we have agreed earlier that is the foundation stage.
Yes, true.
Right? And if you have professionals dealing with children at that age, you give them a better foundation, right, which they can build upon later on. If not, if you're not using professional persons to do that, you will do a lot of damage to children, all right?
That is true.
And then you would have to undo a lot of things, which sometimes is impossible.
Yeah, that is the most difficult. And oftentimes too, we children at a very tender age, they tend to look up to us and with the concept that whatever we do is right. So we need to get it right from the start, and that is important. Give me an example of a time you had to work with someone who was difficult to get along with. How do you handle interaction with that person?
Well, I have encountered with a lot of different persons. For example, I had to deal with persons who were not speaking properly to children and to authority. And that person felt to themselves that they were doing the right thing. So, first of all, I call the person, I speak to them very mildly, in a professional manner, what is expected, what should happen, right? The person didn't listen, so I took the matter to a higher level, not to castigate the person, not to bring down the person, but to see if the person can get help to become a professional so that the children can benefit from that.
Okay. All right, that's good. How can lack of professionalism in education impact students' learning and performance?
Well, education is a process, right? And it is not something that happens overnight. Skills are not achieved overnight, right? So it takes a professional to help a child develop and to grow from one stage to another. Now, if that is lacking, then it stifles the children's development and they would not achieve their full potential, right? And as a professional, you have to learn that each child is different. Good? And knowing each child is different, being a professional, you have to create activities, create a curriculum that would
Cater
for each of the children. Yeah.
That's correct. Right. Now we have spoken a lot about professionalism, and we can safely say that there are a lot of issues with professionalism. Person operating as professionals in what is the workplace, be it institution or wherever they may be. Now, what are two key issues that hinders early childhood practitioners from developing professionalism?
Number one, lack of training. So you have a situation where persons come from maybe secondary school, just from college, without quote unquote the training for early childhood education, and they're placed in a classroom, right? And that happens in our environments.
Yeah.
They're placed in a classroom, and they're asked to teach young children, right? Now, it won't work because they will be lacking the skills. So lack of training is one of the issues. Another issue, again, I believe, is lack of a clear vision. Right?
Okay.
If there isn't a clear vision, right? And you do not have a mission to get there, then you would have issues. So it would be like everybody would be doing whatever they feel like, and that doesn't work.
That would cause a lot of problems. Yes, it will. So what are some of the steps you think that the Ministry of Education can take to improve teachers' level of professionalism in the workplace or the institution?
Well, as I just mentioned, training. Make training available to teachers and create a system where the teachers would be trained first before entering
on
the
the job
classroom.
place. Right.
Yes.
And I want to add that I think the training should be a continuous something, right? Something that happens on a regular basis. I don't want it to be something like, okay, you do training this year and that's it. It should be continuous because you have to be practicing things, learning skills, improving in areas and so. So I think it's a continuous something. What are some of the steps teachers or parents can take to develop their professionalism?
You just mentioned one. We have to learn to be lifelong learners. Education is dynamic.
Sure.
Education is changing. And look at the environment that we're living in now. We are living in an era where we have to learn how to use technology and so on to better improve our practice, right? And you can only do that through learning. So you have to be learning all the time. Another thing we have to learn to do is to emulate good habits, right? You do not know it all. And there are persons that would have done a lot of things, and these are things persons can do to actually improve their professionalism.
Okay. I also think too that persons can maybe do reflection. Oftentimes, the reflection, introspection of maybe the previous days, things that they would have done and
That's
ways
true.
that they can improve on it moving ahead. Because we wouldn't get it right all the time. Sometimes we may fall short a bit, but the good thing is doing the reflection or introspection of ourselves and correcting it later.
So
Right? So, apart from all that we have said, do you think that there is something you want to share with anybody, the audience, something that we must have we left out or so, or you just want to make a general conclusion of what was discussed here?
Well, just to conclude, professionalism is key, right? Is key in the success of an organization, especially the school. All right. So you mentioned dressing, but that's a small part because you have things like timing, right? And timing in a lot of respects. Time persons arrive at work, time they deliver reports and so on. Very, very important. Time they attend to data, key. So I believe if persons become better professionals, then the entire system will be better.
I agree. Definitely, I agree. So, Mr. Richards, I want to take this opportunity to say a special thank you for taking the time out from your busy schedule to be here with us. And I'm certain, because I myself learned a lot, and I'm certain that the persons listening to that video would learn a lot of information as well. So I want to thank you, and let us continue to try to be the best professional that we can be.
You're welcome and thank you for having me.